took 4x my usual THC dose, lost consciousness, and smashed my face into a dog crate, leaving me with a permanent split lip scar. This event occurred at the end of 2022. I refrained from posting for two reasons. First, I am not an active Reddit user, and second, when this incident took place, I was not particularly eager to share the video evidence publicly. However, upon reflection, I appreciate the chance to share my story now. I am especially thankful that my home security camera recorded this, as merely explaining what happened does not encapsulate the experience fully. I could hardly grasp how wild the situation was until I viewed the recording, which was, at the time, quite traumatizing. Before I dive in, I kindly request that everyone read the full context before watching the video. I will recount the events as they unfolded, and hopefully, after you watch, you will gain a better understanding of my feelings during that time. To provide some context, I do not frequently consume drugs or alcohol, nor do I typically use substances that would be considered high doses by casual or experienced cannabis users. I occasionally enjoy edible gummies, but I only started using them semi-regularly in the past 4 years. That being said, I have a low tolerance. The first time I tried marijuana, just 2 puffs of the then illegal skunk weed caused me to vomit uncontrollably at my girlfriend's family gathering. Our relationship was still in its early stages at that point. It must be true love because, nearly 10 years later, she is still supporting me through my mishaps. Naturally, I was hesitant to try THC for a while after that incident, but with time and legalization, I discovered that taking small amounts of gummies could actually be enjoyable for me, typically around 5 to 10 milligrams on average. However, I have learned that once the effects kick in, I become nearly non-functional. My primary aim is to relax for a couple of hours and then go to sleep. Now, let's start the story. I was in the midst of my busiest work period of the year, during which I work longer hours and 6 days a week. To help with sleep, I began taking gummies more consistently for about a month, and I noticed my tolerance increasing. During a recent trip to the dispensary, I decided to buy a THC pen. Please forgive me if my terminology is not precise. I am not very knowledgeable about cannabis, which will become more evident as I continue. I cannot explain what was in this pen, but it was incredibly potent. The gummies would usually take around 30 to 45 minutes to take effect, whereas with the pen, I felt its impact within about 3 to 5 minutes, and it lasted at least an hour. Given its intimidating strength, I rarely used it until one fateful night. I remember it like it was 3 years ago. It was a Saturday night, the only evening I had free where I didn't need to wake up early for work the next day. I decided I wanted to stay up late, possibly smoke a little, and play Warzone with my friends. My wife went to bed while I began playing. As I mentioned earlier, even though I am a lightweight, I had been indulging more frequently during that time and may have gotten a little overconfident. I thought it might be enjoyable to play Call of Duty while high, which is not my usual choice, as I prefer to watch movies and snack when I'm in that state. Even playing video games can be too challenging for me in those circumstances. What the heck? I told myself. I figured I would be fine. That evening, I decided to use the pen. I didn't want to wait for the high. I might as well hop on board this train right away, right? So I took a hit and we dropped in. 5 to 10 minutes later, I was experiencing that numb, hazy feeling I had learned to expect. So far, so good. I will never understand why I opted to take more. Perhaps I was already fatigued, and the combination of everything contributed to my loss of judgment. Nevertheless, about 30 minutes later, I decided to take another puff. I never take an additional hit. I dislike feeling overly high. It's not enjoyable for me to feel like I cannot snap back to reality if necessary. In my stupor, I convinced myself that it was acceptable since it's been 30 minutes, and I don't want the effects to wear off yet. 5 minutes later, I was feeling it intensely. Then I took another hit, and another. For those keeping score, I had consumed 4 times my normal dosage in 35 minutes when I usually can barely handle one. I cannot explain why I deemed the second hit, let alone the third and fourth, acceptable. I didn't take quick little inhales either. I inhaled deeply, held it, and exhaled forcefully as if I was smoking the Pineapple Express cross joint. Again, I have no idea how this pen compares to what more experienced users encounter, but others who use cannabis more frequently have commented on how powerful it is. I quickly realized the errors in my judgment, although I failed to grasp the actual severity of the situation. The people I was playing with had no clue about the foolishness happening on my end. They did not notice my character running straight into a wall for 30 seconds, nor did I. I was no longer merely high. I have never experienced anything like it before or since. All I know is that I suddenly felt detached from reality. Within 3 minutes of the fourth hit, I was in a full cold sweat. I felt as though impending doom was approaching. It was barely 2 in the morning, but I could not have told you how long I had been sitting on my couch. Sometimes, when I consume too much, I experience dizziness, but this felt like that cinematic effect where the camera focuses on the character while the background spins away. It was as if my living room moved past me while the screen remained still. My heart started racing, and I could feel every nerve in my body tingling. Am I dying? Am I already dead? Snap out of it, I urged myself. You are going to be fine. Yes, you took too much, but even though you feel like you might never feel normal again, this sensation will not last more than a couple of hours. A couple of hours at the most. Crap. Bed, I told myself. I need to exit this game and go to bed immediately. If I can manage the 12 steps to the bedroom, I will be safe. Good plan, but 2 obstacles stood in my way. We have 2 dogs that we crate while we sleep or leave the house. We have never let them roam free since they were puppies. They may have been fine, but I wasn't willing to risk any potential messes or being woken up by whining in the midst of my impending drug-induced slumber. After that, I would just need to make my way to bed before I lost the ability to operate a door handle. Here goes nothing. I have to get off the game, guys, I shouted into my headset. I hadn't spoken aloud in 5 minutes, so I'm sure that startled them. What, are you okay? They responded. No, I'm too high and I have to go to bed right now. I didn't have time for a detailed explanation, nor the mental capacity to elaborate further. They laughed and said they hoped I felt better. I turned off the game. I was doing my best to stay composed. Even in that state, I recognized that panicking would only make matters worse. People have asked me why I didn't just sleep on the couch. I have always responded, because the bed is where I would be safe. It may not make sense, but at the time, it was the only choice I saw. Looking back, I realized my wife would have likely noticed my absence in bed, and I wouldn't want to worry her. Nonetheless, I should have remained on the couch. Now it was time to kennel the dogs. The living room was dark. I instructed the pups to lie down, and they went straight to their crates. I stumbled through the daunting 5 steps to reach their location. I felt both weightless and unbearably heavy simultaneously. Do the soles of my feet always feel slimy? No matter, I was sticking to the plan. I felt terrible but wasn't panicking. I approached the crates. One additional detail to note is that I am 6'4", and I have the coordination, grace, and physique of a newborn giraffe when I am decidedly not inebriated. The subsequent actions captured on the camera footage linked below will illustrate what happens next. The dogs should now be in their designated kennels. All that was left was to bend down, close the doors, and secure them. Why does this seem like such a drawn-out process? Wait a minute, are they both in the same kennel? I bent down to inspect but couldn't see clearly. What is wrong with my vision? Oh, it's just dark. I turned on my phone screen, facing it toward me, and the brightness assaulted my eyes. To paraphrase Gandalf the White, darkness enveloped me, and I strayed from thought and time. Stars swirled above, and each day felt as long as an age of the earth. I awoke on my back. I was unsure what precisely transpired until I later viewed the video. Not captured in the footage is my struggle to rise a minute later. My legs were shaky and I fell backward again, although it was less impactful than the first time. I got up once more. My poor dogs had no idea what was happening. I probably was just as clueless as they were at that moment. I managed to get them in their crates, completing that task. Did I just lose consciousness? My face hurts. A significant amount. Something feels odd on my tongue. Blood. I began to piece together the sequence of events. I had toppled forward hard into the wire crates corner, which sat against the wall. My face bore the full brunt of that impact. I reached for my lip. It had that painful numbness you experience as Novocaine wears off. I could tell that things were not positioned where they should be. I prodded with my tongue, and the realization of what just happened hit me almost as hard as the crate had struck my face. My lip was severely split almost all the way up to my nostril. Half of it was completely sliced through, and the remainder was barely held together by a flap. Standing alone in the dark, I had no notion of the full severity of the situation. What I knew was that this was not something a band-aid could fix. Bedroom, get to the bedroom and wake up my wife. I was able to walk to the bedroom without any further loss of consciousness, open the door, and turn on the light. I could not gently introduce this situation to my wife. I said, "Babe, wake up." "Please, baby," she replied. "What's wrong?" I told her, "I got too high, passed out, hit my face and split my lip in half. I need to go to the hospital. I don't think I'm safe to drive, would you mind?" She looked at me, still half asleep. "Oh my God, what did you do?" I asked. "Does it look bad? My face hurts." She handed me a damp hand towel for my face, and finally, I got to lie on the safety of the bed, as I felt unsteady. After she quickly dressed and snapped a photo for posterity, she helped me into the car and drove me to the emergency room. While we sat in the ER waiting room, my wife pulled up the camera footage on her phone, and we both watched it for the first time. I was already feeling overwhelmed, so witnessing the events unfold almost made me cry. The next day, after watching it again, I managed to find humor in how foolish I was and how cartoonish my fall appeared. My wife initially did not find it as amusing, but now she laughs just as much. While the impact and situation sobered me up somewhat, I was still quite high. I worried that if I only told the doctors I lost consciousness, I might have to undergo brain scans at the hospital for hours. In my condition, that would be torturous. Therefore, I ensured that the front desk staff, triage nurse, and the doctor who stitched me up received the entire story separately. As if my bloodshot eyes and general demeanor weren't enough to validate my account. "Seriously, doctor, my brain is fine. I'm just a high idiot in a cumbersome body with a baby tolerance. I was fortunate that the damage was limited to my lip. I did have a minor scratch that extended up my face, narrowly missing my eye. That healed quickly, leaving only a slight bruise. Regrettably, my lip is permanently scarred as a reminder of that night. I have maintained a mustache consistently since before this occurred, and it completely conceals the scar. I do occasionally shave it off a couple of times a year, and even though the wound healed very well, the scar remains quite noticeable. To be honest, I somewhat appreciate the way it looks. I should also mention that the impact of my fall left a significant dent in the crate, which is still visible today. I realize that those with greater tolerance than mine or different experiences might find my description of the intensity I felt to be exaggerated or inaccurate. I have done my best to articulate the profound feelings I experienced and my thoughts throughout. Hopefully, once you view the video, it will become evident that I was indeed in quite a state. Thank you all for reading. I may not be the best writer compared to others I've read, but I sincerely hope this was entertaining for everyone. I will post the links to the video and pictures below. Recording https imgurcom c pefi 3 lmp for the damage https imgurcom gallery and z2p5qg tldr. I have a low tolerance for cannabis. I consumed 4 times my normal dosage in a short span. I lost consciousness while kenneling my dogs and smashed my face on the crate, cutting my lip nearly in half, which has left a permanent scar. This entire incident was captured on an indoor camera. Edit wow, my first gold, thank you. Edit to fix the links. Story 2. At 21, I still walk on eggshells around my narcissistic mom, longing for a true relationship and dreaming of going no contact. I am currently residing with a mother who exhibits narcissistic tendencies, and I find myself at a loss regarding how to handle the situation, particularly as I also struggle to cope with childhood sexual abuse inflicted by my older brother. To begin, my mother has displayed this behavior for as long as I can recall, and it has become increasingly challenging as I turn 21 and she ages. Her behavior seems to worsen. I truly believe I have not experienced a genuine relationship with my mother in years. I constantly feel as though I am treading lightly around her every single day, as nothing I do ever seems to satisfy her, which is emotionally exhausting. I recently obtained my first job, and I hope that if I manage to save the next 4 paychecks, I will be able to leave and cut off contact. I have been trying to absorb advice on this app, TikTok, and elsewhere, which suggests that going no contact is indeed a beneficial approach, but I am in desperate need of straightforward opinions considering my circumstances. The memories that haunt me the most are the painful ones, such as one. When I was young, I cried and fell silent because she refused to buy me anything from JCPenney. She then approached random people and coworkers, introducing me as her ungrateful daughter. She literally exclaimed, "Excuse me, everyone, look at my ungrateful daughter." I felt so humiliated that I attempted to hide among the racks as she loudly called out, "My ungrateful daughter is hiding over there, come out." 2. Once I was in her room because my dog had an accident on the floor. I offered to clean it, but she became upset, claiming that I am incapable of doing anything right. I pleaded with her to avoid escalating the situation, making a calming gesture with my hand, which prompted her to respond. "Don't you dare talk to me in that condescending manner." Her tone was enough to shake anyone, and I simply walked away. 3. Most recently, I took a nap in her room as it was darker there. I placed her pillows against the dresser near the laundry basket, a simple mistake I forgot to move them afterward. When she came to sleep, she yelled my name and ordered me not to do that again. I apologized repeatedly. Later, as I was preparing to nap again, I remembered that I had left my sleeping mask on her bed. When I asked her if she had seen it, she replied, "I don't know, maybe you should check the laundry basket." She did not merely place it on top, she shoved it into the basket alongside my father's dirty underwear. 4. That same night, I closed my eyes to rest while she was texting me. I had my phone set to do not disturb mode to unplug the router, which made me frustrated, though I knew better than to show it. I entered her room and asked her which one it was, to which she replied, "Ugh, I thought you would have known." I walked out to find it myself, but she followed me, accusing me, "Why do you give me so much attitude and not others?" I was confused by her claims and started crying, prompting her to shout at me to stop or I would wake everyone up, telling me not to play the victim. My grandmother rushed to defend me, and my mother insisted that my grandmother stop hugging me because that's what she does. She plays the victim. 5. In conversations about my relationship, I have not shared the details of the abuse, but when she is angry with me, she complains to family members about how horrible a daughter I have been. I have been dating my boyfriend for almost 2 years, who knows everything about me. When my mother was recently upset with me, she questioned my relationship and insinuated that maybe he is with her out of pity due to her past. She constantly tries to pry into my business whenever she sees me upset after a disagreement with him, as misunderstandings are part of relationships. However, I do not trust her because I am aware she will manipulate that information. When she overhears conversations as she passes my room, she intensifies her attempts to probe me and I usually respond, "Everything is fine." She retorts that I am too needy, advising me to stop because guys don't appreciate that kind of behavior. 6. She has threatened me if I discuss any of these occurrences, stating, "I do not appreciate you talking badly about me, never do that again." For example, my younger brother, whom I count as my only sibling, struggles with addiction. I do not see him often anymore, but when I do, I catch up with him and share what has been happening at home. My mother treats him worse than me because he stands up to her. However, when he tells her about what I've vented about, she sends me messages expressing her anger, saying I upset her for talking about my feelings, even though my brother has no relationship with her. She confronts me in person, throwing accusations like, "How could you do that after I provide you with lunch money?" I explain that providing basic parental support is expected, and I cannot be held accountable for that. Despite my reasoning, she continues to berate me, using typical parenting aspects like housing and financial support against me. 7. I often receive passive-aggressive remarks, particularly about my weight. She frequently dictates my life choices, and if I disagree due to my interests, she dismisses them, insisting that they are not good enough and I won't succeed if I continue down that path. 8. Back in high school, after the pandemic, I was eager to try birria tacos. I excitedly pointed out a place promoting them, hoping to share my enthusiasm with her, but she impulsively turned in and began scolding me until I ended up in tears. I explained that I merely wanted to show her the location, but she wouldn't allow me to leave until I exited the car and ordered a plate. I repeatedly told her I no longer wanted it, begging her to leave because the car next to us was observing our argument. Ultimately, she kept shouting for me to get out of the car until I complied. I ended up exiting in tears and ordering the plate, and she demanded that I eat it while also claiming, "This is why you will always struggle with your weight." 9. Every time we argue, she fails to make a valid point. My frustration often leads to tears, and in response, she dismisses me, saying, "Here we go again. You're so dramatic, always playing the victim, just shut up." If anyone from my family overhears, they rush out to defend me, prompting her to exclaim, "Can't you see she is just playing the victim?" I find myself shutting down and walking away. Following these encounters, she gives me the silent treatment for days without offering any apology. Eventually, 4 or 5 days later, she texts me asking for favors and acts as if nothing occurred. 10. She portrays herself as the perfect family member on Facebook and in public, expressing her pride in me, yet it is an entirely different story behind closed doors, deceiving everyone outside of our household. 11. She dismissed the abuse I endured as a child, questioning me even after I confronted her about it. She witnessed my older brother on top of me in my room, restraining me, which was just one incident among many throughout my childhood. 12. During middle school, I began to cut myself when I grasped the reality of what had been happening with my older brother, which led to my depression. When my mother discovered this, she rolled up my sleeves and accused me of seeking attention. I confided in a friend in 8th grade, expressing thoughts of ending my life without revealing the reasons. I hadn't disclosed anything that happened to anyone. In a moment of despair, I ingested several Tylenol and melatonin capsules, which is almost comical in retrospect, as I took about 6 without knowing better. Emergency services arrived at my home, and she chastised me, claiming I sought attention by cutting and attempting to harm myself. This account represents just a fraction of the countless instances of her behavior, and I refrain from detailing each one as it would amount to an overwhelming narrative. She frequently bombards me with affection and material gifts, despite my protests, because I am acutely aware that if I ever mess up, she will hold this against me. I inevitably feel isolated in this situation, as she clearly demonstrates favoritism towards others day after day. She seems to primarily oppose me, making that abundantly clear. When my older brother is present, she puts on an exaggerated show of excitement and happiness, even though I am right there, causing me great anxiety. The same behavior extends to my cousin. She lavishes attention and gifts on her, treating her like a daughter and significantly better than she has ever treated me.